Welcome back to Smitty's Learning Room. Today we are going to begin having a look at the HSC option Improving Performance, and we're going to have a look at the concept of strength training. So before you watch this video, I suggest that you go back to the Core 2 playlist and watch the strength training video from Core 2. This will give you a bit of a revision from strength training, and I would also recommend you to revise your strength training notes from factors affecting performance. The reason for this is that a lot of the content that comes under this part of the syllabus has already been mentioned in Core 2. There are just a few things that need to be added, and that's what's in this video. So having a look at the Improving Performance syllabus, we look at this focus question: how do athletes train for improved performance? And today in the video, we're going to have a look at this concept of strength training. So you should already know about strength training and resistance training using elastic and hydraulic weights, and also having a look at free weight training. This video, we're going to have a look at isometric training as well. And so when we have a look at the new content for strength training, which you may or may not have seen before, we're going to have a look at a deeper look into isotonic versus isometric movements and what are some of the effects of isometric movements. We'll have a look at measuring and monitoring strength training adaptations and the safe and potentially harmful strength training procedures. So we'll start by having a look at isokinetic movements. Now these are movements which require the muscle to shorten and lengthen against resistance. So that's most movements that we perform in the gym. So for example, a bicep curl, we have the shortening and lengthening of muscles with the weight in the hand, which is resistance. When we look at isometric movements, these are movements which develop tension in the muscle but do not change length. So for example, a plank or holding against a wall would be an isometric movement. So when we have a further look at isometric training, we'll start by having a look at the benefits of isometric training. Now obviously, because you don't need any weights or anything, there's minimal equipment that is used to perform isometric training. And because of this, it's very quick and easy to learn. So it's a good thing to use for athletes who are new to doing weights or young athletes. You'll see isometric training more in rehabilitation, as it's valuable for building up muscle strength in a specific area. And the other great part about isometric training is it can be performed outside of the gym environment. So you can do it anywhere within the home or the outside environment as well. Now when we look at the disadvantages for isometric training, the isometric training does not actually increase strength through the full range of movement, whereas isokinetic training does allow us to do this. Isometric training also increases our blood pressure, and it actually decreases our speed due to a static position. So we're not really increasing our power here, we're actually just increasing strength slightly. And also there's no chance for muscular endurance with isometric training. So we'll see some improvements in the very early stages of isometric training, but the longer you do it, the less improvements you will see. So the next concept in the syllabus that we need to have a look at is measuring and monitoring the strength training adaptations. And there are many adaptations which should be evident if you are undergoing strength training. And some of these adaptations include an increased muscle power, strength and hypertrophy, so size of the muscles, increased force and power capability of the muscles, decreased body fat composition, and the way that your body looks and appears is obviously going to change as well. Because of the weight-bearing activities, you're going to have an increase in bone density. That's particularly important for elderly athletes or adult athletes. An increase in creatine phosphate stores. That's obviously a positive thing when we're looking at being able to supply our body with energy. And we have an increase in strength in the supporting ligaments and tendons. So when we look at the actual measurement of it and how do we monitor it, measuring and monitoring of adaptations can be done by conducting various tests. And so obviously pre and post tests are going to be the best indicator. And so, if you do a test prior to starting a 6-week training block in the gym, and then you might do one midway through and one at the end, you're able to measure your improvements and your adaptations as you go. All of these tests should be valid and reliable and target a specific muscle area. There are some tests that you can do which are very specific and not necessarily based around that pre, during and post testing. And this includes the use of dynamometers, and that's often otherwise known as a grip test, where you sort of push and pull test for hand and forearm grip strength, or a 1 rep max test. Now this is where we do the maximum weight that can be lifted once, and this is good to actually have a look at the specific muscle areas or muscle groups that you're working and carry out an isokinetic muscle movement and see how much weight you can lift for 1 rep. And then that would obviously be compared throughout the season to see the adaptations and improvements. And finally, we have a look at the safe and potentially harmful strength training procedures. Now, when we look at this, basically the safety guidelines for strength training, if these aren't followed, that obviously then means that they can become potentially harmful to the athlete. So it's really important to make sure that all the equipment is well maintained and in order, and it's good to test the equipment before you actually start undergoing your training session to ensure that it's going to provide you with a safe environment. Always warm up prior to exercising and lifting weights, or start lifting, do the first set a little bit lower than the repeated set, so that you obviously warm your body up before you start lifting maximum weight. When the lifts are challenging or difficult, use a spotter to assist you, and ensure that all of your lifts are controlled and have a smooth execution. When doing weight or strength training, it's really important to begin by looking at developing your whole body strength, and that's why it's important to begin your strength training program with multi-joint exercises rather than isolating specific muscles to work on. And this is so that you can focus on your technique and core stability when lifting, and so you're getting a whole body workout rather than just isolating the specific muscles. And when you're looking at strength training programs, if you're doing specific muscles, so for example, you want to increase the size of your biceps or the strength and power of your quadriceps and hamstrings, that needs to be combined with whole body workouts to ensure that your body is balanced, and also so that you can control and have smooth execution of those weights, and also to contain or maintain your core stability to assist you in lifting. So as mentioned earlier, you should already have a relatively large knowledge of strength training and the different types of training that you can use for strength training. If you haven't already, I suggest you go back and watch the Strength Training Core 2 video, and also to revise over your strength training notes.